All right, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. This is the Coaching to Flourish podcast. My name is John Andrew Williams, your host. Today, we are with one of Coach Training EDU's trainers, Jen. Welcome, Jen, to the podcast.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited. So Jen you went through the wellness program? No, you went through the academic program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You are a trainer for both the academic wellness and the executive.
That's right.
And so I had the pleasure of working with you also through your 2.0, and that was, it's been a while. So here we are as a trainer for Coach Training EDU, and I'm really interested in diving into your story and learning more about what you do. And so Jen's a trainer, and she also has a private practice that focuses on growth, personal growth with students and older people too. So Jen, what honest first reaction when you first heard the words life coach? Honest first reaction.
Yeah, I talk about that a lot, actually. My reaction was, I don't really know that I'm interested in someone else telling me what they think I should do with my life. And then, yeah, I guess a lot has changed since then, clearly. But I think I didn't really understand what the role of a life coach was and what the benefits were. And I honestly never thought that I would be one when I first heard about it. So yeah, a bit of a switch.
What was that switch between, I'm learning about this too. Hey, I could be one of these.
I hired a life coach to help me with the business that I was running at the time, and found it hugely beneficial. Took me a couple of coaches till I found the right one that suited me, and she recognized that I was ready for a change, or helped me to hear myself actually finally be able to say it out loud, which was huge. And actually, she planted that seed. Said, have you ever thought of being a coach yourself? Because I knew I wanted to shift into something new, and I didn't know what that looked like. And I guess she put the idea out there, and it sat with me for a little bit. And I mean, I had studied psychology in university, so there was already a bit of a natural interest in understanding what makes people tick, and curiosity was there for sure. So that's what, yeah, it was just my coach putting that thought out there for me.
Good for your coach, because that's a nice thing to do, to recognize and to move in that direction. And I also think too, it's surprising how many people enroll in life coach training program who have never worked with a life coach. Mm-hmm. That always surprises me, and it's fine. And I think that having worked with a coach is a really big benefit to the training, and that's why part of the training is designed the way it is. There's so much you're also getting coached while you're practice coaching. I
know, that's sometimes my favorite part. I'm like, how I get the dream job. I get to help to teach, but then at the same time, if there's ever an opportunity, I'm right in there to be coached as well. So it's great.
Right. And then like in the final final training session, like, what's your favorite part of the training? Oh, the part of not John talking. The part when we jump off in groups of 2 and practice. That was my favorite part by far. I'm like, oh, great. Thanks. Like, way to end this course on a high note,
Yeah.
But that's fine. I mean, I think that it's one thing to, hear about life coaching, read about it, and then to actually experience it as a client. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think when people experience it as a client and they get that insight, that's when I feel like the light bulb starts to go off.
Yeah.
What was the light bulb moment for you when you knew life coaching was, fundamentally sound?
I think it was, I don't know if there was a light bulb moment or if it was a gradual progression. So there was that first idea of it, and it actually, the suggestion landed really nicely. It sat well with me. And then as I researched the programs that were available, I'd always been drawn and have done a lot of work with teens and young adults. And actually with Coach Training EDU was one of the few I found that had that specialization. And so that really caught my interest. So I'm really a big believer in following your passion and combining what you tend to be good at, what you enjoy doing, and what you're interested in. And so the marriage of those two things really made me feel like, yeah, this is what I'm excited about doing. Um, I think when you first you try it out and you start to see results and get feedback from the clients, that's really exciting. And now I feel like I have the best job in the world, and yeah, really happy that I am where I am right now.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jen. It's I think a privilege, and often I'm humbled with this idea that we get to devote our professional lives for the sake of the greater good. Like we get to work for social change in the sense of helping people, no matter who they are, become more empathetic and flourish.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
What's your favorite exercise to train? As a trainer, what's the course you look forward to the most, or the class you look forward to the most?
I love the first class because I think I love hearing it's just so diverse. And with Zoom, and we're able to coach people from all over the world. Everybody has their own story, which I just find so intriguing. And I love to hear what has brought the different backstories, what brought people to coaching, what they're hoping to contribute, and the vision that they have going forward. So I really love that. I love the energy when a new group comes together, because now I know by the end of it how connected they will be, the support system that they'll become for one another, that they're just meeting for the first time. But I have that faith and almost foresight, having done it before, that just wait till you guys see 6 months from now how confident you're going to feel, how bonded you will all be. So the first one's really exciting. But in terms of tools and lessons, there's so many. And to be honest, every time I teach the content, I really do find I honestly go through it again myself. I'll come away from that topic and do a little bit of self-assessment. Maybe I've had the opportunity to be coached in that class, and there's always a new takeaway for me. So I'm trying to always continue to grow. But values is a really big one for me. I think in terms of people living their lives aligned with what their values are is really important. Future self, having that vision. I think people don't always understand what that one's going to be about. And I think until they really see it happen and experience this vision of what my life is going to be like, maybe 10 years from now, the impact from that is always really powerful. So I always feel honored to be a part of that experience for people as well.
Yeah, the future self is one of my favorites too. I have some, I feel like there's some fun things happening, and with ideas and idea like the future self that work really well. Now positive psychology is starting to study why. And what I love about coaching is what we get to do is we get to do the practice of flourishing, and really lean into like the hands-on watching people make those action steps. And then the positive psychologist can come by and say, this is why it's working.
Yeah.
Where do you see, or where do you see the profession of coaching moving in the next, let's say 5-10 years?
Yeah, I really think, I'm unfortunately right now with the COVID pandemic, I'm seeing a lot more people wanting to learn what coaching is. That's a good thing for coaching. I'm sorry that these are the circumstances that it's taking. But prior, a few years ago, when I said I was a life coach, it was a lot more explanation that was needed at a cocktail party, or, oh, what does that mean? And what do you do? And I'm finding it's becoming more of a recognized profession. And what I'm really enjoying seeing is the people taking what they're passionate about. So if somebody's an artist and they're able to combine that with coaching, or have a specific niche that they want to focus on, maybe based on experiences that they've had, and apply that. So rather than just being a generalized industry, it's getting, I think, more specific, which I find really exciting. Yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, I guess well said. The idea that coach training can be a container for another specialty
Mm-hmm.
to, to package value, that
Mm-hmm.
you can give. Yeah, and make more specializations. That's in part. Yes, right on. So let's dive into your history a little bit. So where did you grow up? How did it influence you? And yeah, even today.
Where did I grow up? I'm born and raised in Toronto, Canada. So we have students in our classes from all over the world. Most tend to be the US. So I'm very aware now, thanks to the classes, of my Canadian accent sometimes that comes out. I don't think I have one, but I do pronounce certain words a little bit differently.
Was it a boot? I had a wrestling coach in college who was a Canadian. He had a really strong Canadian accent that we played with.
Depends where you're from in Canada, right? So home of
I
the
grew up in
Raptors.
Pittsburgh, so it's not too far from
Yeah,
Toronto.
it's
Like
not
we
too
used
far. So
to,
that's not far.
yeah, we used to pop up there all the time.
Yeah. So yeah, well, home of the Raptors, which we're very proud of. Yeah, I mean, I love where I live. I live near the beach, which I think suits our lifestyle as my family. It's kind of more one of the more, I would say, laid back and close to nature. That's a big. I go down to the lake every single morning for a walk, so that's a really big part of just my life and almost like a meditation for me, I would say. So yeah, that's where I'm from. I guess I've spent a good chunk of my life not knowing exactly what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so that's partly why I'm so interested in helping young people to try to figure that out, and to maybe not put so much pressure on themselves if they don't see that picture really clearly right away. So I was fortunate to always be encouraged to do what I love and follow my interests. And I didn't necessarily at the time see how all those different things, because they're quite varied, from started as a dramatic arts major in university, taking dance and theater, and then moved into psychology. From there, studied international marketing, which was great because it led to me meeting my husband in Mexico. Like it was, but I think that sometimes we don't know what we're doing at the time when we're doing it, and how all those pieces can then come together. So if I were just to look at all those different things on paper, I don't know that I could connect the dots, but it kind of took having my first daughter and knowing I wanted to be there for her and not wanting to go back to work. In Canada, we have a full year of maternity leave. So it gave me a good chunk of time to play around and think about what could I do differently that would enable me to be with her. And a friend of mine said, now I'm noticing a pattern. I'm kind of relying on other people to throw suggestions out there, just like the life coach. But yeah, she said, you love to salsa dance and you want to be with your daughter. Is there something there that you could do? And at first I was like, nah, I don't know. How would you salsa dance with a baby? And then I looked at there were other mom and baby fitness classes where they used the baby little carriers. And I thought about that, practiced around my kitchen for a little bit with Paloma and the baby carrier, and very hesitantly went around my neighborhood, stapling up some posters on telephone poles and hoping people might show up, and had a few classes start. And I was lucky to get on television, and then it just kind of boomed after that. So then when I looked at it, I was like, a lot of these pieces are coming together where, having studied theater, I was comfortable if I was ever being interviewed or being on camera, being up in front of a group of people to teach a dance class, to be at trade shows doing classes, things like so. That piece came in. Marketing, it was a one-woman show for quite a long time, so it was me doing all of that, wearing all these different hats. And then even the psychology piece, I realized, I was hiring women who were also taking that year to maybe a lot of them reassess or decide what they want. Who am I now as a mom? This is a new role for me. They look at me as here, she's kind of created this new role for herself. Maybe mine's not mom and baby salsa dancing, but what could mine be? So it was a lot of coffee time with people who were participants in the class or working with me, teaching the classes. Not that I was their psychologist, but it's sort of, I noticed a pattern starting to develop of wanting to hear people's stories and wanting to help them figure out what would work for them. Yeah.
I always find like organic entrepreneurship like that so compelling because you're doing it to fit a need. Like, you know, you're doing it because it just seems like the next best step, and that's what's going to happen. And then you get started, and anytime anyone puts up flyers, I mean, I feel like that should be like a badge of like a milestone, you know?
Yeah. Well, the cute thing is my kids would, I mean, that was just what they knew, right? Mommy puts up flyers and they'd be in the stroller and we'd be doing that. And then next thing you know, they were there with me at trade shows, handing out flyers, telling people about the class. And then I remember my daughter, I think she was in grade 1 maybe, made a flyer, pitched it to the principal that she was going to start a book club. And I had nothing to do with it. I found out about it after the fact. So I guess, you know, we don't always realize what we're doing at the time, and maybe there's some teaching or role modeling there, but it certainly has trickled its way down to them as well.
That is a proud mama moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's up? Like, make that book club, you know? Like, what the principal say, of course, right? The principal's like, yes, let's do this. Like, we're gonna.
She did say, if you need a grown up, my granny will do it. It wasn't my mom will do it. Somehow she enlisted my mom.
Circumvented the mom figure.
Yeah.
Get mom out. Mom doesn't need to be in this loop.
Yeah.
It's like what I think. So your daughter's named Paloma too.
Yes, right. We share.
Right, so we share a daughter name, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of this one time. Paloma was looking at a lemonade stand. We're driving by a lemonade stand, and she looks at it. And like, you know, as we get a block by, and we were in a busy, we didn't stop. She goes, "That's just bad marketing."
Yeah.
All we do is a lemonade stand. We really knocked our marketing, you know? Fun stuff. So what did you find out about coach training? Like what was the most surprising thing? Like once you started to get into the training, what was the most surprising thing about it?
Taking the training myself as a participant?
Yeah, as a participant. And then we'll slip it as a trainer. Yes.
Yeah. I think it was really coaching the client and not the problem, which we say a lot, but resisting that reflex to want to fix it for people. You know, I think I step into that role a lot in my family, where I want everyone happy and I want to fix things and I want to come up with a solution. And it's funny because I recognized it myself, is that I don't usually love being told what to do. Even that pressure where it's coming from a good place and positive, because I initially worked with somebody who was coaching me who really believed in my business, my former business, and just saw such great things ahead. And you know, I could almost feel that person wanting me to do more. And it was the other coach, who's now currently my coach, who just said, do you think maybe you're ready for something new? And it was like, oh, thank you. Yeah. I wasn't ready to say it out loud because I felt like maybe I'm giving up. I'm a failure because I haven't maybe, you know, reached certain expectations that other people had of my business. They saw this potential, and I was like, so that was a huge thing for me, which I experienced myself. But then when I was becoming a coach, it's something that I needed to have repeated, so that so I always try to keep that moment very clear in my mind. So I remember how that felt for me, remember to do the same for other people, to not have my idea of what is going to work for them. And I see that as a really important piece. And it could be a big struggle for a lot of people who come with great intentions and want to help others, and to step back and realize that other people have the answers. It's just helping them to articulate those, to have the space to say those things out loud and to hear them reflected back, maybe presented in a new way with a new perspective, I think is really empowering.
Yeah, I mean, I think this circles back to the initial idea of what people think about coaching, where they think, oh, if you're a life coach, that means you must be an expert on life, right? And then you have all the answers for everyone to do all the things that they need to do. And so, young people, students come, and one of their biggest misconceptions is something is wrong with me. I'm broken. That's why I'm meeting with this academic life coach. But it's almost the opposite. That's what blows my mind. It's almost the opposite, where if you're meeting with a life coach, it means that you're about to get on this path where you're going to build really strong foundational skill sets. And it's nothing to do with solving problems. Like, it's almost like you want to increase the problem so that you can generate learning, and then that learning is more valuable than solving any immediate problem that they have. Yeah, that's one of my favorite concepts. I mean, that I feel like that gets to the heart of coaching really fast and cuts through a lot of the misconceptions about coaching. What? So as a trainer, what did you find most surprising as a trainer?
I would say, I mean, I'm not surprised by how much I love it, but I'm thrilled every time how much I love it. I'm not surprised by. I don't know. I mean, I think every group is quite different. There can be, different dynamic. Maybe I'm just surprised by how much I'm continuing to learn as I train. Like, you might go into teaching something thinking you're again, I'm an expert on code, but I don't know that I'll ever reach that point. I mean, I hope that as a coach, I never feel like I'm this expert, that I'm continuing to become better. So I think every time I revisit the material, sharing it with a class or reviewing it with a class, I'm hoping to remind myself of those principles, to maybe apply them in new ways. So yeah, I guess the personal growth for myself, and then just I don't want to use the word proud, but how excited I am for everybody at the end, and feeling honored really to have been a part of that journey. And staying connected, it's really what I think that's so great, when people move on and then they remember the group that they were with originally. And yeah, that's a pretty great bonus.
That was the most surprising thing for me, was how bonded people got through the course of the training. I think part of why is because you go through the same cohort for the whole 6 months, but other trainings or classes, that's not necessarily the case, where you might take a weekend here and it might be a whole new group of people each weekend. It really is about relationship. I mean, it's unbelievable to see how human nature want to share, and then also want to be understood. Like, that's such a powerful aspect of coaching. You also were a trainer in a class that was with Peter and Joyce.
Yes, yeah.
And they're going to be on the podcast coming up.
Oh, great. Excellent. Yeah.
And I can't tell you, so Peter has a challenge, verbal processing, and needs to, well, you would know more what Peter needs to communicate. But it's a class that I continue to hear so much about this class. I'd love for you to tell the story, if your experience working with this class and
yeah.
So
Peter is not able to always articulate what he wants to say verbally. So he, and with his mom, Joyce, who's amazing, they both took the program. So they both did the work, but they were together on camera, and she would help him a little bit, just more with the technical things. But Peter would type in the chat in Zoom if he had a question or he wanted to contribute, and his full, we go into breakout rooms and practice coaching one another. That was how we communicated with Peter. And I mean, he just blew me away. He was so, I don't know, it really made me stop and think about if anybody just on first assumption of, you know, what's going on. I mean, Peter is one of the most well-read people I've ever known. He has such a deep insight for things. He's got such an amazing sense of humor. He's a phenomenal coach. Like the questions that he would come out with would really make you think, and just very a dear and lovely, caring person. I know he and my daughter shared some things, and he had some really helpful words for her as well, like outside of class. And it was really a quite magical experience, and really nice to see the whole class embrace the accommodation really that Peter needed. But I think everybody really saw what an asset he was, and he just brought this whole other dimension to, again, back to the idea of what is coaching evolving into, expanding what coaching can mean. And I know he wants to continue to work and offer coaching for people who have similar challenges. So it's really kind of, who would have ever thought that that would be happening? Yeah, that was a really magical experience.
For me, there was so much pre-work into determining whether and how and what it was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the analysis of it, you know, looking back and debriefing it, it's an experience that can launch a whole new arm of coach training, EDUs, outreach, and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
product delivery and all of it. I just want to thank you and Brittany for taking that on and leading it, because it was, I felt like there was a leap of faith in some ways, you know, to deal with an accommodation that we haven't done before, but then also just like the amazing heart that seemed to come out of it from everybody was like, you know, it was teary, you know, it was
Yeah.
there is hope for humanity, everybody. We are all okay. Like, you know what I mean? That's the feeling that I feel like we get from this.
And we should add that Peter is a young man, right? Like I also find that inspiring, because I do see a lot of, I don't know, kids losing social skills as they're so engrossed in the social media things and a lot of this bullying and things that, and to see a young man with such strong values and strong principles, and at such a young age, that desire to help other people and to have such empathy, really, like you say, John, it gives us hope for the future. And just the way the rest of the class embraced him as well. There was not one person who thought, oh, this is going to take longer, or, you know, everybody was just fully supportive and realized what a gift he was to our group.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I still hear things about that class from just random participants. You know, they'll just ping me, and you know, it's like, it's good. I mean, it feels like this is, you know, the feeling as a trainer, like we are doing the work that we were born to do. There's a feeling that just is electric. And I love that. I chase that feeling multiple times a day. All right. So let's do some Q&A. Let's see if anyone has any questions. You can, let's maybe take a couple here. Otherwise I have a couple more going on here, and then we'll just finish it out. We're at the 30-minute mark. Oh, that went fast. I did not keep track of time on this one, but it's okay. So, question: what advice would you give to a new coach or someone just starting out in coaching?
I would say don't worry about the imposter syndrome. I think that's something I know I felt, and your new clients don't always know when you haven't followed what you learned in class to a T. There's so much value that they're still getting. And I don't know, John, you've used that analogy with us of a duck swimming on water where things look real smooth and underneath those little feet are sometimes that's how it feels at the beginning when you're coaching. But, you know, I think to trust the process and believe that you are giving value, even though maybe you're new to the game and you don't need to have experienced it all, that, yeah, there's still a lot to offer, even though you're new.
That's well said. Just showing up is more than half, and listening, right, is more than half the value there. So what's next, Jen? How can this community support you? Or what would be a request that you would ask of the Coach Training EDU community?
Oh, I think just to keep on growing. I mean, I have never experienced working somewhere where, I mean, I can't even explain to people who don't know what like a staff meeting looks like. It's just, it really does walk the talk in terms of caring about everybody, wanting to know even just the temperature, you know, how is everybody feeling? How's everybody doing? The support that's there, and just the potential, seeing that growth. So seeing somebody like Peter, who you mentioned, and instead of seeing that as a challenge, wow, that's a direction we could go in. Or, you know, I know we've had a lot of participants where English is a second language, so that's a challenge. And somehow the coaching still comes across and is really powerful. And I could see branching out in, you know, multiple languages. And I just think I'm just really happy to be a part of things and continue doing what we're doing.
In some ways, I feel like we're just getting started. Like it's like, you know, we have our sea legs now, and now it's time to amp up everything. We have a question from a couple of other questions too coming in. This one from Karen. Could you say a bit more about your coaching business, and do you have a website?
Yes, I do have a website. It's jennifertorres.ca. Yeah, so I work with a lot of young people, teens and young adults. Often transition is a common theme, so transitioning from high school to university or college. A lot of kids who are, I say kids, but to me they're kids, but young adults who are tending to be longer at home and not ready to leave the nest, and you know, that little push to maybe get out of the parents' basement and figure out that whole adulting concept is something that I have a lot of fun with. So I do a lot of one-on-one work. I happen to live right in an area where there are a bunch of high schools, so it's really great for me logistically. Thanks to Zoom, though, that's not really necessarily a limit. And then I do a lot of, I have corporate clients as well. Usually it's one-on-one is what I tend to do, but I go in and do workshops sometimes. Yeah, I do a lot of, I'll do speaking with the kids on different topics. There's a young women's empowerment group at the high school nearby that invites me in to do that. I get so pumped by doing that. I just come home on a real high. I love doing those things. So those are kind of like my passion projects on the side. And yeah, I love it all. And yeah.
How lovely to have a passion project that aligns with your training and what you do and how you make money and provide value to the world.
So great. Yeah.
Wow. How do you get your clients? Or initially, what was the journey like to get your first, handful of clients?
You know, it was a lot of word of mouth. I put a lot of energy into how do I, with my other business, it was easy to market because it was a service. It wasn't me necessarily. It was a class, and I knew who I was targeting it to. I knew the vision of what I wanted to look like. That shift of putting yourself out there. So when you are the business, I found that a lot more challenging to write the content for my website. So what is my whole life story? What is relevant in this context? What of that do I want to share in terms of why people would gravitate toward wanting to work with me as a coach? What do I have to offer? So that was a bit of a challenge. So I put a lot of effort into that. I don't know how much comes from the website, although I do have clients from all over different countries who contact me from that. I am active on social media as well, but honestly, I think a lot of it is word of mouth. I think getting in and doing workshops and things has really helped with that a lot. I'm fortunate to live in quite a close-knit community where, you know, if you work with someone's kid, the reputation starts to spread, and so that really helps a lot too.
Yeah, I once had a mom describe it like a mom squad. Like there's a, you know, there's a definite exchange of resources that happens when which I didn't quite understand because they didn't have little ones that were old. And like when I started coaching, I didn't understand, I didn't have teens. Now it's like, oh yeah, like if you're working with a teenager, like that mom is connected and dad are connected to like 10 other moms and dads.
Yeah.
And word gets around really fast if
Yeah.
you do a good job. If you really,
A question that I really like to ask my coaches that are in training is, what would you like your reputation to be? You know, how would you finish the sentence if someone were to say, you really got to go and talk to John, or see, because he will, or here's what he did for me. What do you hope that people would be saying about you? So, yeah, trying to think of other things. I've gone into camps and worked with the camp staff doing, you know, a little half-hour coaching at a picnic table, because they're always at a time of transition, whether it's going back to school or starting school in the summer, or sorry, in the fall. I've set up shop in people's boardrooms where I will have slots throughout the day for people to do like a coaching tune-up. So, you know, everyone sets goals or their New Year's resolutions. So 6 months from then, I'll set up, come on in and check in and see how you learn what coaching is, get a little taste of it, and let's check in on how you started out the year. And I was nervous about doing that, but I put it out there, and all my slots were filled within 10 minutes of the email going out to the organization. So things like that, right? I try to put myself, I think having my own business, I've learned to just like putting up those flyers, right? I was kind
just give value and you get clients. I mean, the question really becomes, how can I consistently give value in a way that's sustainable?
Yeah.
That's the big question. And I love the word of mouth. I mean, word of mouth now is, I feel like when I started my coaching practice, I wasted a lot of time just trying to make connections without any introduction. Now I find the coaches who are the most successful in setting up their practices, like the most robust, the quickest, are coaches who really leverage their relationships and are, you know, let people know, hey, this is what I'm doing. How can I help? You know, do you have any ideas of how I can give, you know, presentations or deliver some value?
Yeah.
Jen, it's a pleasure. I'm so happy we had a chance to do this. Like, I've been looking at the calendar, the upcoming schedule, really, really psyched. And just really thankful. I mean, Coach Train EDU is lucky to have you. And I love, for me, learning more about your story and getting a little bit deeper has been just heartwarming. And really, thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you too for the people watching live and for your questions. Those are helpful. And then for those listening afterwards in the podcast, yay, we're gaining some traction and getting some listens. So we're doing something. And so here we are. Next week, we're going to have 2 next week. We have Tony Holiday, someone who is in my 1.0, and then another trainer, Teresa, as well, next Thursday.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah, Teresa, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Thank you, Jen. More information on the blog. And this has been the Coaching and Flourish podcast.
Thanks so much, John. Thanks, everyone.